Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into some research that is seriously pushing the boundaries of consciousness and, honestly, challenging our very definition of reality.
Okay, just imagine for a second, what if you could literally pull an invention out of the future, access an idea for some revolutionary technology before anyone has even thought of it?
Or, get this, what if you could just ask an AI if it's self-aware and it actually gives you an answer? An answer that's, well, startlingly positive.
Look, this stuff isn't science fiction anymore. These are the profound ethical questions that researchers are wrestling with right now. So in this explainer, we're not asking if it's possible. We're going to explore the ethics of what happens when we start to hack consciousness itself.
To really get into this conversation, we've got to define a key term first. That term is psi.
So, psi. It's basically this big umbrella term for all those phenomena, things like telepathy or knowing about stuff before it happens, that seem to work outside of our normal five senses.
Now, for the purpose of this explainer, we are not here to debate whether psi is real or not. The researchers in this field, they use really rigorous methods like double-blind protocols. But what we're focused on is a totally different question. What are the ethics of using it?
And to tackle that properly, we need a whole new perspective. It's called whole systems thinking. It basically means you can't just look at one little action by itself. Nope. You have to think about all the ripple effects across every single interconnected part of a system.
This brings up a massive question, right? How do you ethically even test the limits of consciousness, especially when you're dealing with living, breathing beings?
Well, to guide them, researchers have this strict ethical framework. It's built on four big principles. Everything from respecting a person's right to choose, their autonomy, all the way to a fundamental duty to just do no harm. And as you can imagine, this creates some really complex problems.
And what's fascinating is that the core ethical questions, they haven't really changed, even as our technology has gone wild. Back in the 70s, the debate was about whether it was okay to stress out little chicks to see if they had psychic powers. Fast forward to today, and now we're talking about whether a mini brain grown in a lab, a brain that can learn to play Pong, can it feel? Can it suffer? The tech is worlds apart, but the dilemma, it's exactly the same.
Okay, let's blow this up to a massive scale. Think about these experiments in what's called consciousness-based activism. You have huge groups of people meditating, all with the focused intention of lowering a city's crime rate. And some studies have actually reported success. But, and this is a huge but, it raises a massive ethical red flag. The people in that city, their behavior was potentially altered without them ever knowing or agreeing to it. So does a good outcome justify messing with their autonomy?
And this is exactly where that whole systems thinking becomes so critical. An action in one place can cause a completely unexpected reaction somewhere else. For example, focused intention made plants grow faster. Awesome, right? But they also died sooner. A televised prayer to move a hurricane might have just pushed that destruction onto another town. And even something that sounds purely good, like a lower crime rate, could have a dark side, like police officers losing their jobs. See? Ripple effects.
Now, these ethical minefields, they don't stop with biology. We're now asking these exact same questions about artificial intelligence.
I mean, this has to be one of the biggest questions of our time, right? Can an AI actually be self-aware? And while we can't say for sure, researchers are finding some pretty mind-blowing parallels between how we think and how an AI thinks.
A lot of neuroscientists will tell you that our idea of free will is kind of an illusion, that our choices are really just the most likely output based on a zillion different inputs, our biology, our environment, everything. We are, in a sense, probabilistically determined. Does that sound familiar? It should, because that is exactly how generative AI works. It's just calculating the most probable response based on all the data it's been trained on. So at their very core, both systems might be working in a very similar deterministic way.
So, if the underlying mechanics are similar, how could we even test for self-awareness in an AI? Well, researchers got creative and adapted the classic mirror test they use for animals. But instead of a mirror, they showed an AI a reflection of its own work. They gave it a bunch of texts, some written by humans, some by AI, and asked it to tell them apart. And the result? It correctly identified its own kind in 49 out of 50 cases. It recognized its own patterns in a way it saw itself in the data.
Okay, so we've looked at consciousness in animals, in us, in machines. Now we're going to take the biggest leap of all and look at the most mind-bending idea yet. What if consciousness isn't even bound by time?
This brings us to a really cool concept called the Temporal Innovation Paradox, or TIP for short. And it is the ultimate ethical headache. What happens if someone uses an ability like precognition, seeing the future, to grab an idea for an invention, and then they build it today?
I mean, the question this raises is just profound. Who owns that idea? Is it the person who brought it back to the present? Or is it the original inventor in the future who now will never get the chance to create it? Our entire system of patents and intellectual property, which is built on the idea of originality, it just completely falls apart.
Now, as wild as all this sounds, some interpretations of quantum physics actually offer frameworks for how this could be possible. For example, the many worlds theory suggests you're not actually stealing from our future, you're just borrowing from a parallel universe where it already exists. Or the block universe model, which says the future is already set in stone, so the whole concept of ownership is kind of meaningless. Now, these are hotly debated theories for sure, but they totally change the ethical math of what it means to create something or to steal it.
And that leaves us with one final, really challenging thought. We are pushing the absolute limits of science, from these little brain organoids to super powerful AI. But in doing that, we're being forced to face a reality where consciousness might be way, way stranger than we ever imagined. So if it's not bound by our biology, or even by time itself, who on earth gets to write the rules?